going down, man? It's Down the Houston Podcast, man. Hey, check it out. We're here today with a special guest, man, where we're talking about documenting this Houston hip-hop culture. You have to start, I'm going to say you have to start with this guy. You know what I mean? Matt Sonzala. What's going on, man?
What's up, Donnie? It's been a long time coming, man. I'm definitely glad to be here in the studio, finally get to sit down and talk to you. But you definitely should not start with me because I was not first.
Okay.
And I've told you I want you to get with my girl Felicia Johnson sometimes. She used to go by Dacre Bray and Murder Dog. Ted Williams with Murder Dog early on. I mean Ben DeSoto. People like there's people that came way before me for sure. But
this is why I have you here. You know what I mean?
I appreciate it. Like I feel like where I got lucky is I came in. I mean I was doing things before the internet, but when the blog era happened and all that stuff happened, it was so new and so fresh that I was able. I did a lot of it where I was able to capitalize on it for myself without even making that much effort because it was just like this whole new era where you just threw it out there and the whole world had access to it.
Yeah.
Nowadays that seems like nothing. That's just what happens when you wake up. But back then it wasn't really like that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's why I said, I mean, for me, I would just remember every time I would see anything related to Houston, it was always like Matt Sonzala. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, the age you are, like that era in the early to mid 2000s, you know what I mean? Like I was involved with a lot of the things because I lived in Chicago for a few years and was writing for Murder Dog, Double XL, and I didn't write for The Source until I was back here. But like when I came back to Houston, I was like, man, everything's about to blow, man. Things are really happening. And so 6 months into getting back, I came in 2002, I started the show Damage Control with Zen. May he rest in peace. And so I had a radio show. I wrote for all the magazines. So of course.
Wait. So what were you seeing in Houston that made you feel like, okay, it's about to like go down? Was it the Swisher House
making money.
the streets? Okay.
Lil Flip, Swisher House. I mean, the Screwed Up Click guys, South Park Mexican, like infinite people that people don't even know about today. Like some of the Latino artists, stuff Aggravated and stuff like that. They were actually selling their tapes and CDs through Southwest Wholesale and out the trunk in this city. In this region, you know, not even the whole state. You know what I mean? Like they had a good little network. I'd like to talk to you about that more in depth than this, you know, at some point. You know, while we as this moves on, I'd like to talk about what I really loved about that era because there wasn't a publicist here back then. There may have sort of been, but there wasn't anybody really like there were some people that were sort of documenting and doing things or whatever, but there wasn't anybody who really had that sort of finger on the industry and the streets. And for me, when I came down here, it's like I had the magazines, I had the radio, so I had a lot of industry connects. So it kind of became like, okay, I want to do something on Houston or a Houston artist. They didn't have email then. The artists didn't have like email. There was no social media. The phones changed every month, every couple months, you know, if you were lucky. But I was out there, so I could find ESG, or I could find, you know, who was a big help to me was Hawk when it came to like, if somebody was like, I want to do something on the Screwed Up Click, you know, or me meeting Bun B and Bun B understanding what I was trying to do. I mean, Bun B is like the greatest man in rap, like in hip hop, period. He's like one of the greatest human beings that's been in this culture. He's helped so many people, including myself. And he also helped open doors to me to some of the artists and let them know, you know, you can trust Matt. Because some of the artists didn't understand me because I wasn't asking them for money. Sometimes they'd be like, what I got to do for that? I'd be like, no, just come on. You got to just come do this interview. You don't have to pay me. Just show up, please. Don't make me sit here for 2 hours. That's payment enough.
Yeah.
You know, and I just became that dude who MTV, the New York Times, BBC, Norwegian television, everyone. You know, like literally everything that happened back in that 02 to 06-ish or so, 90% came through me. I maybe 90% came through me. I'm not exaggerating. Like that was the time.
And that's kind of, that's kind of like a golden era in Houston. You know,
it was
what I
a
mean?
golden
Hip-hop,
era for sure.
Yeah.
But people forget too, like that's not the first one. When the Ghetto Boys were growing, that was huge. You know what I mean? And then after that, Want to Be a Baller.
Right.
I mean, Want to Be a Baller to me.
Is that the largest song to come out of?
I think Mind Playing Tricks is the biggest, and Want to Be a Baller's number 2.
You think Mind Playing Tricks is more recognizable than Want to Be a Baller?
I think Mind Playing Tricks is more recognizable in hip hop for sure, but maybe because like I think we talked about this before. I heard Want to Be a Baller like playing in in a grocery store in Germany, like just the ambient music in the back. Like, and I was like, I want to be a baller. That's a big ass song.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, Still Tippin's huge. There's lots of big Houston songs, but like if you really look at like the history of this, those two, I mean, Mind Playing Tricks and Want to Be a Baller are probably on a world scale.
Yeah.
Maybe not the streets in Houston, but like on a big scale, yeah. And then
You say
scale,
I'm sorry, we got Lance here too. You know what I mean? Lance Skywalker's here. You say Mind Playing Tricks?
Yeah, that's the biggest by far because that had the first global reach, and it was like an introduction of the Ghetto Boys to the whole world. So
yeah, I mean, I think
that one's a massive. That one's just everywhere.
I mean, Mind Playing Tricks is in the upper echelons of hip hop classics.
Oh, definitely. Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's one of
definitely.
those hip-hop
It goes over like Southern and East and West.
Yeah,
It's like, no, we're talking hip hop. Mind Playing Tricks is in the conversation. Of just,
So, I mean,
yeah.
people are always like, oh, Houston didn't do this, Houston that. I'm like, yeah, we did. You know, South Park Mexican had a big deal. You know what I mean? His world, that was going on with him in the
Wait,
late
tell me about
90s.
South Park Mexican because I don't really know a whole lot about like South Park Mexican. I'm just now starting to kind of dig into that.
Man, I mean, regardless of what happened in the end, I still think the details on that whole situation are sketchy. I actually am probably the only person that interviewed him right after he went into jail. Like, I interviewed him for Murder Dog, and we talked about a lot of that situation. And I don't want to talk about that situation. I want to talk about,
His
you
career.
know what South Park Mexican was? He was the Mexican Tupac. I don't want to put him on a level exactly of Tupac.
No,
as
I'm not.
Tupac,
I'm not gonna
but
stop
when
you
it
to
comes
correct you. I was gonna say that with me digging into him, I felt like that. Like just seeing the people react to him, I'm like, duh, he's really like kind of like the Mexican
To
Tupac.
me, what I love Tupac and Biggie. Everybody puts them up to the top all the time. Biggie was incredible. Biggie did not touch the hearts as deeply as Tupac did. Biggie touched hearts. Biggie's incredible. Nothing taken away from him. But Tupac went right into the hearts of humanity. In Africa, people love Tupac. South Park Mexican wasn't that big by any means, but the people he touched. Like, that's a bad analogy. I'm sorry. But I'm sorry. I'm funny.
No.
Funny, no. But he literally, though, he really, you know, DJ Screw wanted to screw up the world, you know, and South Park Mexican screwed up his world.
Yeah,
You know
I mean,
what
even
Like,
now, if you look online, there are people that really ride for him to this day. Like,
yeah.
to this day, it's I don't know. I'm like I said, it's just a new thing to me, like learning about South Park Mexican. But dude,
Yeah.
was,
No, I mean, like, you know, I always say, like, with Screw, the way he just entranced his audience, man. Back in those days, to see the impact that Screw had was just surreal. And, man, South Park Mexican entranced his audience. People were down for him.
so did he do it? Did he go? Did he have a major deal? Or did he stay independent when
He
he
got
was?
a deal with Universal.
Huh.
I think Reveille. I get dates and things mixed up. I feel like the Reveille Park one was on. I don't know. He definitely got something with Universal,
That's what's up. Okay.
which was also around the time I Want to Be a Baller.
That's what's up. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning then. Where does it start for you just getting into hip hop?
Getting into hip hop.
Yeah. How early?
I mean, like anyone that's not from the Bronx, like I heard Rapper's Delight, you know, and I heard Rapture from Blondie, and I heard things like that in my neighborhood. You know, kids listen to hip hop, and to be honest with you, I liked it in the beginning, but I'm also a rock and roll dude. I'm a punk rock fan. I love reggae. I love jazz. I love all kinds of music. But I was a rock and roll kid, you know. But when I heard hip hop, you got to understand in the '79 and 1980 or whatever, like there were heavy metal kids breakdancing in the street. Like everybody breakdanced. Maybe not well. I wasn't a good breakdancer, but we had cardboard down on the street, like. And the black kids, the white kids, the Hispanic kids, everyone breakdanced back in those days. It was a big trendy thing. And that was a lot of people our ages entrance, I would think. Now for me, I liked like Curtis Blow. I heard some of those songs, but a lot of my friends, like more in the hood, they started being more into like I'll Be Sure. And I was never a big like R&B fan and that sort of thing. So I was in and out, but then Run DMC. When I heard Run DMC, I was like, wow, that blew my mind.
Yeah.
It blew my mind, and I love Run DMC. And to be honest, like I said, I'm not from New York, so the first song I ever heard from the Beastie Boys was I saw the Fight for Your Right to Party video, and I hated that. I was like, what is wrong with this? Who are these people? Why is there some frat boys making a rap record?
For your right
Now, of course, it's a classic. I love it now.
Party.
I didn't hear She's...
First song I heard by
Well, the first single they put out was "Hold It Now Hit It," which is one of my favorite songs ever beyond the BC. I love "Hold It Now Hit It." That's jams, But when I first saw that, and then black kids I knew, like in my neighborhood, was like, "Man, what do you mean you don't like the Beastie Boys?" I was like, "That's some bullshit. Who are these dudes, man?" And I'm like, and then I heard the tape. I heard License to Ill. I was like,
yeah.
"Oh, okay, no, they do jam." But that's like a classic example of so many artists who come out. Somebody makes that single, it's gonna be pop or it's gonna make it. But all I saw was some stupid frat boys. Like, these are the people that I would hate. That I would see. You know what I mean? In my real life.
Right.
I'd be like, get these motherfuckers away from me.
The important thing was to hear them before you saw them. I heard them first, and then I saw them. If I'd have seen them first, I wouldn't have won.
Yeah, I mean, the "Holding Out Hit It" song was so hard. If I'd have saw that video, maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah.
That's basically. I think I have the same story as a lot of people my age.
Yeah. So as far as
seeing the Beastie Boys.
Yeah. So as far as Houston, I mean, of course, Ghetto Boys is first and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So when do you start actually getting into like documenting it?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, it was a heavy metal kid down here who I met because I'm not from Houston originally. I'm from Erie, Pennsylvania. My father moved here in 1980, so
Okay.
I was back and forth between Houston and Erie, and I would come down here, and there was like this total heavy metal kid named Carl, and he's like, "You like NWA and stuff like that, and Public Enemy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I love rap." He's like, "Man, there's a group from here called the Ghetto Boys. You got to hear them." And I was like, "The Ghetto Boys? I heard about that." And if you had the first Public Enemy record, there was a million, like, the line
shouted
had
them
a
out,
million
right?
thank yous, and it had all these names by city, and it said Ghetto Boys Houston. Honestly, I was like, are these gangs? Because it had like Indianapolis, or it had like different cities. I'm like, I'm not thinking about rappers in Indianapolis or Houston.
Right.
At 14 years old in Erie or whatever, 16, whatever it was. And he was like, you got to hear the Ghetto Boys. I went to the flea market on 59 in West Park, and there was a guy who sold tapes. And I was young. I didn't even know these were, at the time, I didn't know they were bootlegs. I didn't know what it was. I knew I could get 3 tapes for 10.
Yeah.
And he had Gripping on Another Level. Sorry, Jay. No, but he had Gripping on Another Level for, I got that. I think I got that. I got Schoolie D, Smoke Some Kill, and Third Base, the Cactus album, on my 3 for 10 at that
Yeah.
time.
That's not a bad 3 for 10.
No, they were all right. And they all were like blurry printing and backwards, and but I put that record in, and I was like, oh, the Ghetto Boys. That was incredible. They took it all further. Like, that's what I think about hip hop. Like, it's always been competitive. And so you had NWA come out. I feel like the Ghetto Boys had to come out even harder, and that's when that spawned like the Terrorists and the Gangsta Nips, and it was like seeing that progression of like people trying to outdo like how hard you could go.
Yeah.
That was a crazy era.
Yeah.
And for me, liking like heavier music,
Yeah.
like heavier, metal and stuff like that, and punk.
It's always interesting that the heavy metal crowd really gravitated to that kind of hip hop. Like,
It was hard. It went hard, man.
Yeah.
It went hard, and it was crazy, and like theatric. Like the Ghetto Boys were the best showmen ever.
No shit.
Like in hip hop, they had the best shows.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like, there was no stopping me then. Like, that was the shit when I heard that.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, as far as the document though, like when do you actually get into like kind of keeping up? Because you were saying the kid kind of introduced you to the Ghetto Boys and all that.
What's that?
You were saying the guy introduced you to the Ghetto Boys, and so
Well,
I'm saying when do you get into actually like documenting it yourself? You know what I mean? Like kind of just keeping up with everything.
Well, I met the Ghetto Boys because I went to this school here for audio engineering.
Okay.
And the teacher, back then I had like an NWA hat, and I was, into hip hop, and most of the people in the audio engineering class were more rock, and my teacher came up to me and was like, hey, Jeff Wells from Sound Art Studio. He's like, hey man, you like rap? And I said, yeah, man. He said, I had this group coming to my studio. It's going to be recording. I need somebody to just kind of be there, be an intern, and just kind of clean up and just be around. He's like, the Ghetto Boys? I was like, the Ghetto Boys? I was like, what? He's like, yeah, if you want, you can just, come in. And so I was there the whole time. It was, Beto working on the records, Doug King. And
so what album is this?
We Can't Be Stopped.
The album. Yeah.
Bushwick, Willie D, Scarface were barely in the studio at the same time. Unless if Jay didn't tell them, you all have to be here to talk about something. They all did their own parts on their own. Me and Craig from Heights Vinyl. There's a store called Heights Vinyl. Craig, who owns it. I'll never forget one night they, the song where they sampled Queen Latifah's "Ladies First."
Yeah.
That was just like an idea facing them. We're like, man, we need that record. We need to do that. And Craig was like, I have it. And we drove from the northwest side of Sound Arts down to Pearland where he lived. This is before Pearland was a town. This is 90, yeah.
And that's old Pearland. That shit is far as fuck.
Yeah, it was real far, man. And we went down and dug through his records, found the 12-inch, brought it back for them. Man, that was an experience. Man. I had a lot of crazy stories from that.
Let's talk about it. Come on, man. That's what we're here for.
My first
that you can talk about. You know what I mean?
That's not that can. I mean, 3-2 was there all the time. You know, just being in
what
the
was
studio.
3-2 doing, man? Anytime
3-2 was at everything.
No shit.
If you went to a show, 3-2 was there. If you went to a Jing in the Park, 3-2 was there in that era.
Yeah.
Post convicts, pre-convict, like in that era.
Yeah.
3-2 was he was a hip hop man, hip hop everything. He was there. Yeah. At least everything I was at, and at the time it was allowed. I was always going to. If I heard about it, I was trying to go see it. And well, my first experience with Willie, I had two crazy experiences with Willie D there. One was the part where they're like, you know, Jay's like, first we kick down the door with this and that. And Willie D's like, man, they're like looking for a sound effect. He's like, man, why are we looking for a sound effect? We just kicked this door down right here, man. Let's do it. Just mic it up. And Jeff and them, nobody was there but me, like on the studio side. And I'm like, man, you can't just kick the door. This is a studio door. This isn't just a door. This is a studio, you know, thick studio door, like expensive. You know, I was like, Willie D, you cannot just kick the door. And Jay's just sitting there. I'm like, seriously, man, you can't just kick the door in. If Jeff says you can kick it in, call him. I can't tell you can kick the door in. No, you can't kick the door in. And he's like, man, what the fuck, man? Shit, man, we pay for the door. You know, Willie D. And I'm like, man, I was like, Jay, will you please just tell him, seriously? I was like, will you please just tell him, man, that if Jeff says kick in the door, I can't say that. And Jay's like, man, Will, calm down. That was crazy. And then when they were doing the skit that's like the Grammys, like the award thing, and they were making fun of, you know, country music and rock music, and it's basically saying like, oh, you don't include rap and all this. I said, man, you need to bring in like dun 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 dun, and you need to call out Vanilla Ice. And he's like, man, hell no, we ain't calling out Vanilla Ice. Anybody that's trying to do something for rap is cool with me, man. If he's gonna bring more people in to listen to rap music, that's fine. We ain't gonna diss no rappers. I was like, shit. I would diss him, but it gave me a little more different understanding, a different perspective when Willie D told me that.
Well, but yeah, that's the thing too. Yeah, I was thinking because didn't Jay say he thought he was gonna sign him at one point?
Well, Willie D told me he wanted Jay to sign him. I don't know whatever happened with that, but I mean I know he didn't sign him, but I don't know exactly what happened then. But you know, Vanilla Ice battled at the Rhinestone Wrangler.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I hope he lost. And then I'm a hater. But I was, you know what I was?
Oh man,
I was thinking about this recently because sometimes I talk about I don't like the lip syncers. I don't like a lot of shit that's going on in what they call hip hop now. But I was thinking back. Do you know? I never saw a Mark Wahlberg movie ever in my life.
Yeah.
I never watched a Mark Wahlberg movie.
Because he was fucking. Because
I hated Marky Mark.
Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch.
To this day, I'm like, fuck that shit, man. Don't fuck with this culture.
Yeah.
Don't fuck with his music.
Yeah.
If you can't prove yourself to be real, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to know it.
Yeah. Marky Mark was a wild time, man.
That was horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. And then for me, I'm like a white kid in that era. Like, I'm like, this is that whole era of Vanilla Ice and Marky Mark and all. I was like, that don't represent me.
Yeah.
That doesn't represent me at all. I want to kick his ass.
And the fucked up part is people probably tied you to that shit. Like,
I mean, even when Eminem came out, you'd walk in a club and people be like, Eminem. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Everlast. Like, shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? But that shit would happen, yeah. But for me personally, I mean, the black kids like in my class would be like, why you don't like Vanilla Ice? He can dance. I'm like, he sucks. Yeah. That shit is stupid.
Yeah.
But I've always been like, keep it real to a fault. You know, like I don't really care, you know, what people think. I don't care what's hot. I don't care what people are saying is popular. I want to hear what's good. I want to hear what's great. I want to represent for what's good and what's great. I've always represented for the underdogs, and Houston has been underdogs forever. Yeah. Even when they were on top, they had a battle. Yeah. You know, it wasn't simple.
Yeah.
So
okay, after Ghetto Boys, what do you kind of get into?
Well, you asked when did I start documenting. I was writing. I did like a little fanzine, like just a little Xerox thing that we would just give out at record stores and try to sell at like punk shows and things. And I met this guy named Jim Testa, who had a magazine called Jersey Beat, and that was a pretty big like punk rock fanzine, like nationally distributed. It was in like Tower Records and things, like you could buy it everywhere. And when I met him, I don't remember how it came about, but he was like, "Man, you really like hip hop, man. I never really covered any hip hop. Maybe you could do a column for me, like just do a hip hop column." And I was like, "Yeah, I could try. I mean, I got the records and I pay attention. You know, I could do that." And it actually got a pretty good response because there were people who were like, "What is a hip hop column in Jersey Beat? That's silly." And then it was actually covering like poor righteous teachers and YZ and Tony D and people in New Jersey, but also Ghetto Boys, later the Chaotix from here, like stuff like that. Like I wrote about like real rap in that. And then at South by Southwest in like 91, 2,
When did South by Southwest start?
87.
Damn.
Yeah, 87.
I went to 90.
Yeah, I was there from like 90 on and attending, and I helped book with Andre Walker in 94, 95, and 96 when they just had one or two hip hop shows. We had ESG, Big Mello, the Grave Diggers, Black Monks, Chaotix, Psycho Ward. GT was on here recently. I mean, Poetic Souls were on there. We're on the 94 one. Matt Flavor from Dallas. A lot of cool stuff. Erykah Badu came out with a group called Heads and Dreads from Dallas and just knocked people onto the floor like before anybody knew who she was. She was like in a sweater with like real short hair and those eyes, and she's opened her mouth and sang. Everyone was like the whole place in 95 at Catfish Station in Austin. But he introduced me to a guy. It's crazy because there was Jersey Beat and then there was Texas Beat, which was a free little magazine you could get in all the record stores across Texas. And I got Keith Ayers. He let me start writing for him. I did a Scarface cover for him, a Fifth Ward Boys cover for him, like a bunch of little reviews. You know, I wrote about the Pain Teens, which was like a Houston punk band. I wrote about like a bunch of just cool Texas music, including rap. And that's when, you know, he was like, "I don't know anybody else I could ask to cover this stuff." And so I started doing with that. And when I started writing locally, then I was able to take those little things and make just basically a press kit for myself, like a portfolio for myself, and I'd send them out to the magazines and try to get bigger national magazines to let me write for them.
That's what's up. Okay.
And then I also had the radio show on KPFT. Which
yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah.
Well, GT was on here, and that's my brother, man. We all started out together at KPFT, but he neglected to mention one very important part of that show was Rad Rich. He's a guy who brought us all together. Rad Rich from Third Ward. You know, he's been around forever. He's like the punk rock scene, man. Like, he was like, if you've ever been to a show in, like a punk show in Houston, you probably not only saw Rad Rich, you experienced Rad Rich. Like, that dude, everybody knows him on that side of the world, man. But I met him, and he told me, he's like, "Man, you know, KPFT, 90.1 FM here, this is a community station." He was like, "Man," this was 90, I want to say 91, 92. It's foggy for me as far as what was what then, but I'd like to say it was like 91. Even if we started in 92, we talked about it in 91. And he's like, "Man, I want to start a hip-hop show on KPFT." I'm like, "How do we do that?" He's like, "Well, we just have to make a proposal." And I'm like, "Okay, well, let me know. Let's try to make a proposal." Well, then him and this guy, Nick Cooper, who's a drummer here, he's in the Free Radicals. Back then he was in a band called Sprawl. Real serious activist here in Houston. Him and Nick Cooper made the proposal, and I want to say it took 6 months to a year. It took a long time for them to really respond, to the point where I pretty much had given up. And Rad Rich one day called me and was like, "Hey, man, they're going to give us a show." I was like, "Really? Let's do this." He's like, "Yeah, it's going to be Sunday night, Monday morning." We were on 3 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. Monday morning. That's the slot they gave us. I was like, "Okay, let's do it. Let's get started." Hell yeah. I wanted to be on the radio. And so we started doing that. And to be honest with you, like, there was a radio show on KTRU 91.7 on the Rice radio station hosted by Will Strickland way before us. And both of our shows, we weren't commercial radio. We could play anything. So we would play more like a more diverse presentation of hip hop. And Will definitely took us under his wing and like helped us out. He was a record promoter, so he had access to everything. Like, he worked with all the labels, and he was promoting records, and we became this new place where he could promote. Him and Mikey Jam, Will Strickland and Mikey Jam, both like kind of took me under their wings and gave me all the phone numbers for the labels so I could call up and say, "Hey, we have a radio show, we need to get service." Me and Will traveled a bunch together, like to like the Impact Convention or wherever, South by Southwest, and just around Houston, like just rolling around. Like he definitely helped intro me to the industry as far as being able to get records. And, like I said, he was the man that's who you went to see, and then of course Lump and lots of record pools and stuff. But Will was more, not so much a record pool. He was promoting straight up. And he helped us get the music and all that. And then the show was going pretty good, for as good as it could go at 3 to 5:30 on a Sunday. And KPFT liked it and told us, this is only a few months, I believe, and expanded us from midnight to 3 to 5:30 to midnight to 5:30 Sunday nights. And so Rich kind of freaked out, like, we can't do 5.5 hours. I was like, yes, we can, man. He's like, I'm gonna bring some more people, and I was like, no, I'm not lying. I'm gonna always tell the truth. But he didn't care. He went and got Cypher, GT, and a dude named Baby Gramps, and basically we all started doing the show together, and we would go in shifts, like one would do 1 to 2, the next would do 2 to 3, the next would do, or 12 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and then 3 to 5:30 would be the last one. And then we would rotate. If you ended up getting stuck 3 to 5:30, the next week you'd be at 12. And like all of us had our own styles, our own things we wanted to bring to the table, and it was just a cool 5.5 hour hip hop show every week where we could play everything that we wanted. I mean, it had to be clean, but we'd play a wide range.
Right,
stuff.
right.
And to be honest, back then it was more, I always say, like Freestyle Fellowship and Black Moon or Positive K or whoever. Like, and we played Houston stuff too, of course. But for me, the Houston stuff was Chaotix, Seeds of Soul, times 2.
See, I want to talk a little bit about that scene.
I want to talk about that for sure, because that's ridiculous. That it's not ridiculous. I mean, I'm glad Lance is here. I mean, Lance put the Chaotix in his book. That's important. Like, you can't talk about Houston hip hop history as a whole without talking about everything, man. Literally, like, Screw is very important. All the guys that made it like big are important, but Chaotix are for sure, hands down, the first rap group from Houston to tour Europe. And they toured it fairly extensively.
And were they independent? Did they have a deal?
So they were independent, but then they ended up, I think it was Fat Beats put the record out. Yeah, they got their first stuff, I think they put out themselves, but then Fat Beats, which is an important indie hip hop label, store, distributor from New York, they took them on. They started putting out their records. And that was a big deal for people on that side of things.
And so who's all in the Chaotix?
Big Mun, his name was Mike the Madman back then. Damian Randall, he was Dookie Love.
I know D. Randall, yeah.
And the R, which is Russell Gonzalez. And that's actually, you want to hear how I heard the Chaotix?
Go ahead.
They were first called Guess Who, and Russell, the R, worked at Soundwaves on South Main. So did Cypher, so did all kinds of people. So did DJ Premier, Carlos Garza. That was the most important. That was also my intro to hip hop down here, living off of Holly Hall on the other
you were
side
right
of the
there.
Dome. I spent my 60% of my paycheck at Soundwaves every single week, and Sound Exchange, but I was a record head. Me and Will Strickland, we went for whatever reason. We were over at Soundwaves, and Russell was working, and he was talking to us, and he's like, when we got back to Will's apartment, we would always we'd sit and go through records and tapes. We would just listen to music and go through what we want to play that weekend. And I remember he was making a sandwich, and I was like, who's Guess Who? I like yelled out from the room to the kitchen. He's like, man, that's that white dude we was talking to at Soundwaves. That was him. He gave me that tape. I'm like, all right. I put it in, and I was like, yo, come here. This is dope. Who is this? This is dope. And actually, you asked if they had a deal, if they're independent. Actually, Doug King put out their first tape.
Oh, shit.
New Style Records, Satin Smooth. Was Less Money on New Style? I could be totally wrong with that. She was around for sure, though. And Less Money, somebody you should talk to someday. But Chaotix, they became Chaotix. Like, basically, we called Russell, like, yo, this is dope. What is this? He's like, oh, well, we changed our name to Chaotix, but yeah, that was our demo or whatever. I believe that's around when it happened, because it all was pretty fast, But I was like, this is dope. And what was crazy was I lived off Holly Hall, and these apartments right at Holly Hall in Alameda. And I ended up getting in touch with Mike before, or we might have met or whatever and exchanged numbers, but we were both 713-797. whatever the last 4 numbers were. And I was like, yeah, I'm 7. I was like 79. We're both 797. Where you live? He's like, I live off Holly Hall. I was like, I live off Holly Hall. He's like, I'm in Scotland Yard. I was like, I'm in Plaza Place. Like, we literally lived in apartments across from each other.
Yeah.
And we became like real close friends. And I wrote their first bios. And that's kind of how it started too, writing bios, because these guys a lot of the artists didn't have like someone writing these things. They didn't even know what a press kit was. So I came in and was like, yeah, I'll do it for $20 or whatever.
Yeah. So
Literally.
Chaotix,
Or nothing.
the first group to tour Europe. So who else was in that scene around that time that was kind of doing some stuff around
Well,
there?
GT's group, Poetic Souls, GT and Snap, Diology, Taboo, T-Rex, Fliponia, The Madhouse. Those were all the Psycho Ward. And I hope I didn't leave anyone out. I'm sorry if I did. Cypher had a group called the Three Wise Men, which are super dope. That actually predates Chaotix and all them.
That's where I met you. Is that one of their shows?
The first show I ever put on was at the Axiom, and it was Three Wise Men, H-Town Hispanics. The first show I ever put on in Houston were Three Wise Men, H-Town Hispanics, and Decadent Dub Team from Dallas. And Decadent Dub Team were on the Colors soundtrack. And that guy, Jeff Lyles, has always been a mentor to me. Like, he was kicked off the radio in Dallas for playing NWA. Like, he was literally used to be on the phone with Eazy-E and stuff, and he was the first person to ever play NWA on the radio outside of California for sure, but maybe anywhere. Like, on the radio.
Man, that's what's up.
Early on. Like, he was thanked, like this dude from Dallas and this woman, Kim Bowie, who was also a mentor to me. Like, both of them were thanked on the back of the first NWA 12-inch and the back of the first CIA 12-inch, which was Ice Cube's first group. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll listen to y'all. Tell me what to do. Those guys, like, yeah, it was amazing. Those were crazy times. But so there was more. There was No-Dos, Def Jam Blaster and them. There was, I live in Austin now, I think about the history back then. Like, the Cooley Girls were super dope. Bad Mother Goose was a whole nother different type of thing, but they were dope, and they brought together like a lot of different people. Papa Chuck, Teddy Lee, up in Dallas, there was such crazy stuff going on. 1991, Baby G from Dallas was the DMC champion. We had a DMC champion from Texas before that was like a mainstream thing at all.
Man, that's what's up.
Like, there's a lot of history here that people don't know. So that's important that we talk about. And I can't even imagine how many groups I'm forgetting. But for me, like Seeds of Soul, Chaotix, Poetic Souls, and the whole Psycho Ward group, like that was a big deal. Odd Squad. Carlos Garza, who's got an immense history here with Blind Rob Quest. They came down to the station first to one of our Sunday shows and brought stuff on tape, and then Devin and Jugmug would come with them.
That's what's up, man.
And they actually sampled me on the radio. Me and Will and Mean Green are all on the intro to the Odd Squad album. Like, they sampled 3
Mean Green, like
Means to Greenster.
The Means to Greenster? Major player?
Yeah.
Means to Green? Talk about Mean Green a little bit. I know you had to deal with like No Limit and shit back in the day. You put the album out and shit. Like, Mean Green was like...
Mean Green's one of those dudes that I watched, and I saw how he respected artists and was a part of this scene. Like, he did his thing on the radio, and he was always that guy that you could go talk to. He'd be in the parking lot, like Devin talks about in See What I Can Pull. Like, he's in the parking lot, and Green's got a big cooler of drinks. Like, that's Mean Green. And I've been in that I have pictures of that exact scenario of drinking beers in the parking lot with Mean Green outside of some club on the Southwest. And Rhythms probably. And I don't know exactly which one. But man, he was just one of those dudes that the artist could go to, could actually talk to. He was accessible. He wasn't like everybody's got an ego or whatever. He wasn't like some dude hiding behind his microphone. Yeah. He was actually out there with the artists in the streets.
Yeah. So did you ever have any aspirations to do like a 97.9 or like a 102 as far as like radio, or you wanted to stay at the...
Hell no.
No shit.
Honestly, I would rather get paid to do be on like a classic rock station and play whatever they're telling me to play there, because you ain't telling me what to play and rap. The program director ain't telling me shit. Ever. I didn't even, back then, I got the industry to send me records. All these other dudes started like reporting to the trade magazines. Like, you had to report these charts, and these promoters would be like, okay, I'll take you to this, or I'll do this if you put this on the charts. I'd be like, I don't report. I got nothing to do with that shit. I really don't care. I play the music for the people who listen to it. And you're not going to tell me what to play. Thank you for sending me the record. But if it's some bullshit. I had an argument with some dude when Vanilla Ice had little dreadlocks. It was like his second album. And this dude was trying to explain to me how real Vanilla Ice is, and man, I'm disrespecting this and that. And he's from Texas. I'm like, he lied and said he wasn't from Texas for one, and I'm not playing Vanilla Ice. I'm hanging up on you now. You know, like that type of shit. So no, I really couldn't be told what to play. Like I could not. Like my boy DJ Wiz, another legend of H-Town, man. I'll never
DJ
forget.
Wiz. Who's DJ Wiz?
DJ Wiz was in Def 4.
Okay.
And DJ Wiz was a DJ before a lot of people. You know, him and Peter Parker. Peter Parker was also in Def 4. Both of them worked together. And DJ Wiz went on to be like the official DJ of Def Jux, like LP, A$AP Rock, all those, not A$AP Rocky, A$AP Rock, and a lot of like the indie hip hop stuff that came out in the later 90s in New York. He was doing all that. He's an incredible DJ. But I remember Wiz played, this is the rumor, and I think if I'm remembering it correctly, Wiz played a song from a group called the Artifacts from New Jersey in his mix in the middle of the night on a Saturday, and it was like it was like going so far off the playlist or whatever, like they were fed up and they fired him off the box.
Oh wow.
The thing is, yeah, dumb shit like that, man. I would be fired so fast.
Yeah.
Fuck that station. Anyways.
So after the underground thing, when do you meet like Bun and all that kind of stuff?
But, you know, before that, though, I will say regarding that shitty station that needs to unban Trey, it's been 10 fucking years and nothing ever happened to any of y'all, and you're a bunch of punks bowing down to somebody still banning one of the most important rappers from Houston, one of the only real activists in the street. Dude is going out saving people from a fucking flood, and he's still banned from your stupid fucking station. Y'all need to rethink that stuff, and anybody who disagrees with me can shut the fuck up. I'm sick of this shit. I can't believe it's 10 fucking years. Anyways, don't edit that out. I first met DJ Chill. I had a job at like this accounting office at 6420 Richmond right when the box started, like right when it started. And I looked up, it was like an atrium, so you could see the other things, and it had a big 97.9 logo. And I went into my office, I was like, man, I need to go up there. And I went up and was just like, hey, if y'all ever need any promotions or anybody to do anything, like, we're building a promotions team right now. So I was on the promotions team for the box for the first 2 years. Robert Scorpio, Greg Head, Michelle, you know, Golden Boy. Everybody was up there. I mean, everybody was up there. Walter D.
So why'd you end up leaving? You know, you said you only did 2 years. Why'd you end up leaving?
Man, to be honest, I did it, and then I went and traveled Europe for about a few months, backpacked in Europe with a friend of mine. And when I came back, my perspectives on everything had changed so much. I was like, fuck commercial radio. And I didn't go back.
Okay, so what prompted that epiphany? Like,
it's a big world out there, man. There's a lot to see and do and hear, and to limit yourself to what some corporate motherfucker's going to put in your ears is really kind of damaging. You know, and that's where we'll go progressive damage control later. But that's how I've always looked at it. Like, it's rape, it's abuse. You're abusing this music. You're leaving out so many people. You're broadcasting to this community, and this community is who supports you. You should support that. You don't have to play every single record that comes out of Houston. But, you know, and they did. That's the thing that pisses me off about these stations. Like, they took over this city by playing this city and by being really a part of the community in the beginning. I was there. I saw it. You know, it was really happening. You know, UGK made it because of getting on their contest show. You know, like play it, chunk it, or whatever you call it. You know what I mean? Like one of those call in and vote on what song you like best. Pump it, that type of shit. For Tell Me Something Good. So yeah, I've seen a lot of things over time here.
So okay.
But I met Bun. I'll tell you, the first time I met him was outside the Palladium. This is before we hung out, or like friends and stuff. This was early in the early '90s when UGK was first happening. The first time I saw, let me back up. The first time I ever saw Bun, and I have this on a cassette, and I've uploaded it before. It's somewhere on the internet. I was at the Cypress Hill concert at the Underground, which is on the northwest side, and Steve Fournier was hosting. And right before, I have this all on tape. He's like, UGK in the house. And I'm looking around, and there's like 15 dudes with has to say Underground Kings all the way across. Like 15 dudes at Underground Kings. I'm like, who the hell are Underground Kings? I don't know. And he was shouting them out, UGK in the house, Underground Kings. And that was the first time I noticed UGK. And then Tell Me Something Good became so big. It was like, you got sick of that song. You heard it so much. It's a great song, but it was so big. And then outside the Palladium, I met I was there with Will Strickland, and he knew Bun. And I just met him, and then years later, when I moved back to Houston in '01.
Well, so when do you stop doing the show with GT and everybody? When does that run start?
That show was like 92 to 94 for me, and then it went beyond with them. But in 93, we also had a thing called the Hip Hop Coffee Shop. Me, C+, Lord Vishnu, and Baby Roo. And this was at the old Onion Creek, or at the current Onion Creek. It used to be called Hoi Polloi, down in the Heights. And it was just an every Thursday night open mic thing for a couple years. And we got written up in Rap Sheet. It was either Rap Sheet or Rap Pages. I think it was Rap Sheet. It was like hot, or not hot club nights. It definitely wasn't hot, but like a cool, like whatever. It just mentioned our open mic night in Houston. And this guy called me up out of the blue, and I was like, his name was DJ Overtime, Scott Thompson. And not the DJ Overtime from rec.music.hiphop. You might not know what I'm talking about. But there was a DJ Overtime who was a Southern DJ who was really pivotal in spreading Southern music on the internet for sure. But this is a different DJ Overtime. But they were from the same area. Like, my guy was from Missouri City, but he was going to school in College Station at the time. And I feel like the other DJ Overtime was from that area too. He was definitely Texas. And but this Overtime guy calls me up, and he's like, oh, I got this group. We want to come down here, Hip Hop Coffee Shop. I'm like, well, it's open. Just come. It's like an open mic thing. And he's like, there's a group called Funky Position from out there. And they came out, and they did a show, and they got in just like everybody else did. And me and Scott were talking, and Scott's father had passed, and he got a little inheritance. And he's like, man, we're moving to New York. We're going to make it, man. We're going to go. I'm taking the group up there. I'm going to get a house. I'm going to put a little studio together. And I was like, man, that's dope. You should, give it a try. And then he was like, man, I'm telling you, you want to come up, because he, saw me as like being industry. And he's like, you want to come up, you can help us get the studio together, introduce us to some people. I know some people, we can work it, man. We can do this, that. And he's like, you can live for free for a while. I've got this house we're moving into. And I was like, I don't know you, really. But to be honest with you, I had some family situations happen that were annoying. And there was some shit going on between everybody, like, and I like just in the scene, like people were getting on my nerves, man. And I was like, really, I'm sitting here saying no to a free room in New York. I'm gonna move to New York, and I moved there like the first month, like beginning of '94. And I was in New York like beginning to end of '94 in Brooklyn and Clinton Hill. And
so you there when like Ready to Die is coming out, and I mean this is like,
man, '94 was a hell of a year for records. I was running around with Scarface in New York promoting The Diary.
No shit. How was that?
Amazing. He did a show. Jon Stewart, the talk show host? Yeah. Jon Stewart's one of his first actual talk show, the Jon Stewart Show. They asked me, or the publicist for Scarface probably was like, do you know some people? He gave me a bunch of tickets so I could get some like hip hop fans there to come see him, and then he canceled. So then when he rescheduled, I found out about it. I was like, hey man, I want to come to this. And they didn't give me tickets for everybody, but they gave me tickets to go. And it was Scarface and Russ Myers. Wow. And Russ Myers is like a crazy B-movie director. And that I love, like Faster Pussycat, Kill Kill, and these crazy movies that he did. So I was like, I got to go see Scarface on the Jon Stewart Show live. He did it, I Never Seen a Man Cry, or, he did that live. It was amazing. Well, that was an amazing year, man. I smoked a blunt with DJ Premier and Souls of Mischief.
No
like things
shit.
Like this for a kid. Like I was a little kid, Most Def would be over at our house. I used to go to the weed spot with the group home. Like they'd come record things, and it'd be the middle of the night. They'd want weed, and I remember the first time I was always the one who would go get weed, because you could get it in like fake storefronts. And in bed, like right behind our neighborhood was Bed-Stuy, and there was one like 4 or 5 blocks away, and I was like, yeah, I'll go. I never had any money, so I was like, they buy, I fly. And I was, and the group, remember Malachi and Lil Dap were both like, what? You ain't just going over there? I'm like, yeah, I go there all the time. They're like, we'll go with you. And I'm like, that's Group Home, their first album is like one of my favorite records of all time. So things like that really meant a lot to me. Like I got to just meet these guys. So I had this whole year in New York, and then I just kept going from there. I don't know. And that was where I became, got with a lot of the magazines. There was a guy named Steve Salem, May he rest in peace. He took me under his wing. He put out UTFO, like Snow. Like I was writing bios for like Snow back when everybody was looking at him like, but I was writing bios for him. Yeah, Informer, all that. And he's back. He's back, fellas. But he took me under his wing and introduced me to John Schechter at the Source. They introduced me to like everyone. If he had a party, he'd have house parties with like Clark Kent DJing in his apartment. You know, so it was that level of thing. Like I got to go meet so many people, and then with Scott, you know, over time he hustled it. You know, he hustled the studio. We had people in there. It sucked actually, kind of. We had people in there 24/7, but it was also cool, you know. But it was a crazy year for me.
So when you come back to Houston, what do you get into?
Man, well, what's crazy is I was actually gone for a good part of that. But Houston for me has always been my home base. Like I probably came back to Houston 3 times that year when I was in New York for various reasons. And then there was a label in Houston that was a rock label called Sector 2 in like 93 who kept telling me they wanted to hire me and I was going to start putting out, you know, hip hop. I was like, yeah, we'll get Chaotix, we'll get Seeds of Soul, that type of stuff. And in 95, at the end of 94, I was like, I am not staying in New York anymore. It's too expensive. It's too cold. It's too much. You know, I love New York to visit. I don't want to live there. And the Sector 2 finally called me. They had moved to Austin. That's how I ended up going to Austin for the first time. And I went there and worked for them, and they didn't have any money. And actually, the guy who started Sector 2, damn, Steve Salem, my mentor, is dead. Ron Gowdy just died, the guy who started Sector 2. And they'd had, you know, I ended up being more like radio and PR and promotions because I was like, I'm not going to sign some rappers to a nothing deal. Like, this sucks. There's no money. So, I mean, we were talking with Crazy C to get this group of mad scientists. Like, we're trying to do some cool things, but it just wasn't gonna work out. And by the end of that year, everybody went to Mexico for a meet. We got a distribution through Koch. Towards the end of the year, we switched over to Koch, and Koch brought down all these labels to Mexico for like a label summit. And me and this dude Eric were the only ones in the office that didn't get to go to Mexico, and we were so pissed. We're like, man, they all went to fucking Mexico. This sucks. They came back from Mexico, and the dude locked the doors. Like, it would close down the label. I'm like, y'all just took a free trip to Mexico and then came and shut down the label? Literally. That's what happened.
That's crazy.
But luckily, a woman named Ann Armagida went to this conference and met a guy from a company called the Knitting Factory. The Knitting Factory is like a jazz club in New York, but they also had a label and distribution, and they booked tours for their jazz artists in Europe. And I've always liked like avant-garde jazz as well, and knew a lot about that sort of music. And this guy had the hots for her. They were talking, and he was like, "Oh man, really? Your company closed down? Well, we need somebody in our Amsterdam office." And she was like, "Well, I don't want to move to Amsterdam, and I don't know anything about jazz, but I know somebody who does. He wants to move to Amsterdam, and he knows about jazz." And I got on the phone with this dude, Mark Perlson. I was in New York the next week training. I was in Amsterdam 2 weeks later.
No shit.
Yeah. And in Amsterdam, to relate that to Houston, what I loved, like I had screw tapes, you know, like DJ screw tapes, a few. Nothing, don't ask me which ones, I don't remember. It's just
Were you
random.
going to Screw's house to get the tapes and shit?
No, I had dubs. I cannot say I was ever at Screw's house. No, I was never there. But because that was more the era, like 95 and all that. I think 95, I think it was more the era of when all that was happening. I don't remember the exact dates. Lance could tell you better. But it was in the neighborhood. I was not in that. But I would take tapes in Amsterdam, everybody be stoned, and I'd be like, I'd put it in the party. And that was like my party joke. I did that in Chicago even later too. People would be playing their music, and I'd go jack the tape player and put in a screw tape and watch everybody just melt down. Like, what is this? Why? Who's this? Like, seriously, it would fuck the party up. And I love that shit. But, so yeah, I ended up being over in Amsterdam for about a year too, and got to experience all kinds of hip hop over there, you know. And I got a small radio show on like a cable station over there. They wanted me to play jazz, and nobody cared. And so I started playing, you know, I had a lot of tapes. I worked for 4080 magazine. I wrote for 4080 out of the Bay. And so I was getting so much Bay Area music, down south music, all on tape. And I remember some of the DJs would make fun of me. They'd come to the show just to hang out or check out what we were doing. And like the real DJs would be like, "You playing your show off tapes?" I was like, "This is what I got. This is what people send me, you know." And we were playing wild ass shit. And we would get phone calls from a military base, like Americans who were there in the military, like, "Man, I haven't heard shit like this. I never hear it over here." I'm like, 8-Ball and MJG, 11-5, you know, like Mac Mall, things like that. Also Cool Keith.
Yeah.
You know, and weird, you know, anything. You know, we were playing hip hop.
Yeah. So, okay, when you come back to Houston, which is probably like 98 or some shit like that?
Yeah, I was in Houston, and then I was in Austin a little more in the end of the 90s, and I went to Chicago, too.
Okay,
so like, I moved back and forth, but always kept, like, a base in Houston. But I moved around a lot, like, at that time. I've always been kind of, like, nomadic. I want to go everywhere.
So you're still documenting this whole time? When you're in Chicago, everywhere, you're still documenting?
Yeah, I mean, I was in the west side of Chicago, the south side of Chicago. I photographed everybody.
Yeah.
And interviewed everybody. I went to Gary, Indiana all the time. I went all over this country for Murder Dog. And like I was just constantly, I was literally very much so in the streets of Chicago, Gary, anywhere, you know, covering, because I always felt like, you know, I mentioned Def Jux earlier, LP and Company Flow and those type of groups. I like them, and now I love them more. But like back then, it always kind of bothered me that like there'd be, you know, Spin Magazine or some like big press would do an article on indie hip hop revolution of all these New York guys. I'm like, you ever heard the crazy ass shit they're doing independently in Chicago, like Psychodrama, The Snipers, Do or Die, Crucial Conflict, of course, Triple Darkness, EC Illa, all the stuff Legendary Trackster was doing, you know, CCA from and the MCGs, and the Grind Family, and Rick Gilla and all them in Gary, Indiana, and Hammond, Indiana, like that Midwest music. That was bananas.
Yeah. Nothing
sounded like that.
Yeah.
That was some of the most innovative rap music in the history of rap music, but it wasn't getting a drop of ink. You know, but so that's what I would try to like push to the magazines. And when I finally got with Murder Dog, it was they let me do it. It was
everything. Perfect. Yeah. So okay, you were saying, because I know you talked about the significance of like you and Bun's relationship. When is it? Do you meet him again through Murder Dog? I would imagine.
Well, basically when we were about to have a baby. And found out my wife was pregnant 2 days after September 11th. 2 days before September 11th.
Okay.
And then I was like, man, honestly, I don't want to go through a winter here again. And this is in Chicago. And I was like, things are happening in Houston. I really want to get back to Houston. I've been wanting to get back. And when I was in Chicago, Lil Troy was bringing me down. I helped him write his whole first website.
No shit.
Yeah, a bunch of the stuff for his early presence on the internet and some of the stuff he was doing, and other people too. But mostly Troy. And so I'll be back and forth all the time for him. But then I was like, man, we're moving back to Houston. And I was like, we're going back to Houston. I'm going to get back on the radio. I'm going to get in there. I'm going to make things happen because this is where it's happening right now. I can tell. It's all about to blow. You know, Screw had passed away a year before.
Had you met Screw before he passed away?
I met Screw just one time at a record store in passing.
Okay.
Just like basically kind of like, hey, I respect what you do. That was it. Nothing. Yeah. He would know, didn't know me at all. Yeah. And I just respected him. Honestly, I respected him more than I'd listened to him, to be honest with you. I liked it sometimes. Yeah. But I'm not the biggest Screw head in the world. Yeah. I have the utmost respect for him. And now I understand him more. And then I started to understand it more. But like, I was listening to him before he died. Like I said, I was taking tapes in Amsterdam and places like that and messing with people. But I didn't have like a whole collection of Screw tapes. And when it first started, I hated it. The first time I heard Slow Down Screw tape, I was like, what is, because I was living it. I was out here and I'm like, what is wrong with these dudes, man? For real? What?
Yeah.
And Big Mello was like one of the first people that tried to explain it to me. Yeah. Like, no, man, this is what's up. And I was like, I guess I smoke weed every day. I don't know what this is all about. That's how I felt. But then, it infected everyone. It just happened. You couldn't avoid it. Yeah. And so I started living with Bun. So I was like, man, I'm moving back to Houston. And that was at the time when the Middle Fingers project was out. And I loved that Middle Fingers record. And I guess I just kind of, I did an interview with them, and I needed to do a photo, and I just had the baby. This is early '02, and we had just had the baby, Ava, and if you've ever seen the picture of them in a driveway with like a rundown like garage behind them, and Bun's holding a big machine gun, and he got a Mighty Mouse shirt on, and Big Mun's got a pistol pointing. And that was a photo I took literally in the driveway of the abandoned house next to my place here in Houston at Taft and Polk. Like it was like on the border. We're literally on the border of 4th Ward and Montrose at Taft and Polk, and they came over. We just went back there. They pulled the guns out and snuck them back there, and I took that picture and did the interview. And then me and Bun talked, and right around then, like I said, it's 02.
This is like Pimp C's already in jail, right?
No, I don't know when Pimp C went to jail. Maybe
Somewhere around that time.
I don't remember exact dates on that, but
Right.
they were,
He got up 2006, right?
yeah.
Right.
So he was in for 4 years.
2002.
Yeah,
Right.
it was around then.
Around that
But
time, yeah.
but it was definitely Bun working harder with middle fingers, and but the BBC in Britain contacted me because this is 02, and they wanted to do a thing on codeine cough syrup. They were like, we want to know more about this whole phenomenon or whatever, screw and codeine cough syrup. And they're like, who should we talk to? And I was like, man, if you can get Bun B, of course, Bun B would be the best person to talk to about just about anything. And I called him, and I told him what it was, and he's like, yeah, I'd like to be on the BBC. I'll do that. And I said, well, they want it to sound real clear, so it had to go over high-speed ISDN lines. It wasn't like we had all this mobile stuff now. It was like the internet, to get a good feed. KPFT had a second studio that was connected on high-speed ISDN lines for like news feeds and things like this. And so I asked them, and they let me bring Bun up there, and we used it for like a half hour. He did this interview with the BBC about that. And the funny thing was, I was like, you want me to drive or you to drive? He's like, I'll drive if you like rock. And I was like, what? And we get in, and he turns on the car, and he was listening to the Strokes.
Oh, man.
Yeah, the first Strokes album. And I was like, I love this album, and we started talking about different music and pretty much bonded and became good friends. But he did that for everybody, man. He helped anybody he saw something in, he would do what he could. And I learned from that too. It's like, that's what I'll do too. I want to help, I want to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it's something real, let's try to get it out there.
Yeah.
So,
okay, let's talk a little bit about the 2005 movement, where I'm sure you were involved in all that, like just documenting that. Why do you think that it was so short-lived?
Houston is hustle town, man, and those major labels kind of fucked up the hustle a little bit, in a sense. And I'm talking some shit. Some people might disagree with me, but it's like, and things change too. The MP3s, all these other things happen. So, okay, maybe it wouldn't even be possible to have the same situation we had with Southwest Wholesale back then. Maybe not. I don't know. But, before that, first of all, I think it was 05 that I started the Houston So Real blog. And Serge, my brother Serge, he and DJ Steph, they were kind of telling me what blogs are. I didn't even really know. And he was showing me how easy it was to put a blog up on Blogspot or whatever, Blogger. I think it was Blogspot at the time.
Blogspot and Blogger, yeah.
And I was like, it was New Year's Eve, I think maybe of 04. I don't remember exactly. I think it was 05 that the blog really started. And I had just done interviews and photos of the Ghetto Boys for The Source, right around the foundation, I think it was.
Yeah.
So I had 3 individual interviews with, Scarface, Bushwick, and Willie D. And they were all fucking bananas. Like, they were wild-ass interviews. And, of course, I was just writing an article with a couple quotes from each here and there, so nobody was going to get the whole story. And so my first thing was, the first thing I put up was this interview with Scarface, and I put up the interview, I don't know if I did Willie or Bill next, and Willie D and Bushwick Bill had these 3 nutty interviews with photos.
So what are in these interviews? What are some of the things that were in these interviews? Is it still up? Is it something we can find somewhere?
Man, the photos are gone because I back then you had to put them on a server and pay for the server, and this is years ago. Like, so the servers doesn't even exist anymore, but the words are still up there.
Yeah.
HoustonSoReal.blogspot.com. You'd have to go all the way back in the archives, but Willie D was like, I think this was the time when Willie D was moving to France, but he ended up moving to Azerbaijan, I don't know.
This is my
He
first
was
time
talking
even
some
hearing this.
crazy
I
shit.
didn't even know.
Hmm?
This is my first time even hearing this. I didn't even know
Really?
anything about Willie D.
He lived in Azerbaijan for a while with his family. And just
asked him about it. He said, "You gotta live somewhere."
yeah, he was like, yeah, you know, when things are going down here, man, we there's a big world. We could do all kinds of shit. Anyways, he said a lot of shit. Like he was like, man, I was gonna move my family to France. I'm paraphrasing. We was gonna move the family to France, and I go to France. Man, I'm sitting there. I turn on the TV. And fucking come on, man. They're fucking on the TV, man. I'm like, I got kids. I swear to God, this was in the interview, and everybody reacted exactly like that. He's like, fucking, I was like, man, I ain't moving my kids to fucking France. And so we ended up moving to Azerbaijan, and I'm sitting there like, what? Azerbaijan? What?
How do you even find that?
But it was also his wife had a work. It was like an engineer too, so they were moving around and doing stuff. I don't know all the details on that, but I know he and his family, you know, they moved around around that time, and then Bushwick. Any Bushwick interview is wild. Rest in peace to Bushwick.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk more about Houston's reaction to the death of Bushwick Bill in this podcast as well at some point, maybe not yet. And then Scar, all of them, man, they all are the best interviews ever. And I knew them enough to dig in a little. You know, like I knew how to kind of push buttons to get them, and they would talk to me. You know, they wouldn't just talk to everybody at that time.
Yeah.
Like they might do an interview, but they might not be super open.
Right.
But I could get them to talk, and they just started from there. So I was doing parties. I would go to things. I always say the hardest thing is like back then people weren't taking cameras to Club Connections on a Sunday. You know, I had my camera. It was still 35 millimeter at that time. It wasn't even a digital. But when I was like soon after that, I was like, all right, people like this. I got to make this happen and do it for myself. I went and bought a Nikon D70 at Best Buy, and my wife was kind of pissed. But I went and applied for a Best Buy credit card, and got it, and got the camera, and I had to pay it off like $100 a month for 15 months or whatever it was, however it worked out. And I ended up getting enough work because nobody had a camera like that. I had it, you know, like some people did, but not in rap.
Right.
And so I got all kinds of jobs. I'd be like, you want your promo pictures done? I'll make you digital promo pictures for the web, like $100. Man, I shot groups you never heard of. I don't even remember. Yeah. I'd be like, here's $100. And I'd be like, pay off my camera. I paid it off in like a couple months, you know. I just put it out there. Nobody was writing bios. I'd write a bio for $50, $100. Sometimes a label would give me $500, you know. I just did anything I could, like just hustled it. That's hustle town.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember your question. Where all that came.
With
the beginnings of the blog.
Yeah, the beginning of the blog, yeah.
And then through that, back before social media, we had message boards. So like the screwshop.com had this huge community of people. And we got a lot of information through that. And then, you know, Diplo.
Yeah.
Him and this guy Low Budget, they had a board called the Holler Board. And my boy JD, may he rest in peace as well. He was the first DJ on Damage Control for the first few weeks. And a good friend of mine since we were like teenagers. He passed away a few years ago. JD via Les Jacobs, I believe, they got a hold of this Hollertronics mix. And it was dope. Like but the way he described it to me, he's like, man, they're mixing like Southern rap with like 80s music. And I was like, what? And I put it in. The way they did it was pretty cool. It was like before all the hipster sort of blending of electronic and hip hop shit that happened and ruined hip hop. Anyways, before that, this was a dope ass mix. And I was like, who is these people, man? And got on his message board. When I got on the Holler board, I met like people like Cosmo Baker, Roxy Cottontail, like a woman in New York who was like into Southern hip hop too and wanted to do, like we started doing parties with her. Rapid Rick, DJ Chill, Michael Watson, and we took Chingo Bling for his first show up there. We had a show we did a Screwed Up Click show during CMJ with Hawk, Kiki, ESG, Lil O, Grit Boys opened up, Bun hosted. I mean, that was bananas. Like we did all kinds of like New York parties and started like just kind of working into that world too. And I don't know where I even went into that. Well, that was so we had message boards and we had blogs, basically.
Right.
We didn't have Twitter. We didn't have, the direct messaging, the simple find anybody by name.
Are you doing Damage Control at the same time?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So Damage Control is what years to?
02, May of 02, until today it's still going.
Right.
And I moved to Austin like a few days before Pimp C passed, which was like end of 07. Yeah,
Yeah.
December of 07.
Yeah.
So I did it for that amount of time. Almost 6 years.
Okay. Okay.
And so that there was just like, and that was the beginning of internet radio too. Like KBFT was on the internet, so and we'd have our AOL Instant Messenger open on one screen, and we'd have the holler board and the screw shop on other screens, and we'd just be going back and forth messaging people. People would be messaging from around the world, listening to, rap from Houston
That's what's
and
up.
beyond. But
Yeah. So, okay, we were talking about the death of Bushwick Bill. We were saying.
yeah,
You were saying. Want to talk about that?
I mean, there's no Bushwick. He was all the ghetto boys are kind of crazy dudes, man. And Bushwick was a wild dude who, I don't know, maybe he rubbed some of you guys and me and anyone the wrong way in some ways, but there's no getting around the fact that he's a real serious icon in hip hop, not just Houston hip hop. He's Bushwick and the ghetto boys are very important to hip hop as a whole and extremely important to hip hop in Houston. And to me, I don't really understand how he passed so quietly. And it's not like no one cared or no one has given any real tribute to him, but like you can see a DJ Screw mural everywhere or something, or people are always, we're going to fight to keep DJ Screw's name alive, and we should. But Bushwick Bill, he's day one. Like, he's part of why we're here, man. Like, he's from breakdancing on up to rapping to Bushwick is an integral part of Houston hip-hop history. And I feel like the respect isn't there like it would be for, we've lost a lot of people. We've lost a lot of artists here, man, and beyond, not just artists. How many RIPs have I said in this interview, man?
Right.
And that's not everything. I want to see Houston stand up a little more for the little big man. The history that he has here is so strong. Being in the studio, him and 3-2 and all that, they were in the studio for the Chronic. These are people who are integral parts of things that people don't even know about. The influence that 3-2 had on Snoop, on hip hop, the skill, the incredible deft rhyming skill of 3-2.
I was watching something the other day. It was an old video. It was like Black Monks, and Bushwick was actually in the videos. And
that's South by Southwest. That was South by Southwest '94. There was a girl interviewing him. Yeah, that's my YouTube.
No, okay. So I'm watching that the other day, and it prompted me to where I'm like, man, I really want to dig into the whole 3-2 thing because there's such like a sadness. Like when he was talking, he was like, man, y'all just got to stop biting our stuff. And I was like, that's so fucked up to where this is 94, and I'm sure him looking at the biggest rapper at the time with his shit,
He pretty much admitted it.
And the lasting effect that may have had, you know what I'm saying? Just I don't know. I just feel like for 3-2 to be as dope as he was, I just feel like it never really got to where and about the influence that he had, it never got the acknowledgement that it should have.
People wonder why, like they say, oh, he was messed up, he was this, he was that. He was an incredible talent, even if when he was messed up, like he was a better rapper than most rappers. But imagine the torment you must feel. Like seeing, and no disrespect to Snoop. Snoop is Snoop.
No,
Like, he was Snoop before he, but
of course,
seeing elements of your style, like in like literally the biggest rapper, literally. Yeah, I bet that was tormenting a bit. And then the same could be said for so many people here. Like Houston influenced so much.
Yeah.
Before Screw, in addition to Screw, in addition to all these things, like there's been so much that's actually emanated from this community that never was truly respected or truly acknowledged on a bigger level.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So.
And a lot of good things happen too. I'm not just hating on everything, but it's hard to talk about too because think about. How many friends we lost. I see somebody running around with like codeine cough syrup. I liked codeine. I liked slowing it down in real life. But what else do you have to see? How many more of your friends have to die? Your heroes have to die. Like seeing that still getting like promoted and they're doing their flyers with a big purple this and that. It's like, man, I'm looking at ESG and how healthy he looks right now.
Yeah.
Look at him as an influence. Some of these dudes who were fat as hell, I need to do better, by the way. but who were fat as hell or whatever, became like, okay, we're gonna get it together now because we lost our heroes.
Yeah.
What are we not learning from that?
Yeah.
You know. So.
Yeah. Okay. So talk a little bit because you were saying we said Bum was important, but you also said the Hawk relationship was important too, man.
Man, Hawk was just a really good dude. To be honest with you, Chill called me the night he was shot. It was about 11 o'clock at night, and I was about to go to bed, and he's like, man, they said Hawk just got shot. And I was like, I don't mean nobody shot Hawk. Literally, I went to bed. He's like, I'm going to go over there. I'm like, nobody's going to shoot Hawk.
Right. That's
the
the most
greatest
random
dude.
shit. Yeah. Yeah.
Whoever did, man, like, maybe I don't want to know. Was it an accident? What the hell happened, man? Like, nobody has told me. And that's such a mystery to me, man. Like, that dude, he was the type of dude who's like, you know, because Screw had already passed. Somebody he was the 5-star general, man. He held it together. If, you know, rappers aren't the easiest people to corral into a situation like, hey, y'all, MTV's coming down and they want you at the Screw shop at like 2 o'clock. But man, I don't know, I might have to be here. And you're like, no, it's MTV, come down. No, I'd call Hawk. Like, Hawk, man, you know, MTV's doing this thing and we need to get everybody down there, man. Let's make this right.
Mm-hmm.
He'd make it right. He'd make sure everybody came. Yeah, it'd be like, hey, man, there's this thing going on. Or if we're doing a tribute show on Damage Control or something, it sucks. One of our biggest tribute shows was to him, you know, like when he passed. And like, you know, him and the Grit Boys, like Grit Boys are my, like, practically blood. You know, they're brothers of mine. You know, like they're family. You know, and I met the Grit Boys through him. And just everything about that dude. I mean, he sold insurance. Like, he had a job. He worked and rapped and did what he did. Like, he was a great dude, a great dad, a great husband, like, a great friend. Like, Hawk was the best. And a great rapper.
Yeah.
And Hawk and his legacy gets fucked by your stupid fucking Trey ban too, little radio station. How about that? You're fucking Hawk too by banning Trey, and that's some bullshit. All right.
Or with the swing, yeah.
Yeah, with Swang, man. One of the best songs,
Swang.
biggest songs he was on.
Yeah.
Incredible song.
Yeah.
They can't play that.
Yeah.
Bullshit. We
Yeah.
can talk about that for the next hour. All right, the next hour we're gonna really go in.
You want to? Because I was going. You want?
I
To?
mean, no, not for
No,
an hour.
you
Not for
don't.
an hour. I think
Okay.
I already said it, and I've said it for years. You know, I wrote an open letter to the box and the Source, all XXL, all the Nancy Byron helped me get it out there. So like all these websites put it up, and I laid out how what Trey did by rapping, calling her a fat bitch or whatever it was in a rap was actually hip hop. Like, he battled back. They called him out for some dude shooting up Trey Day, and he's like, "Hey man, that wasn't me.
It just
Fat
happened at
bitch,
this
don't
event.
talk
Yeah.
about I'm giving away school supplies to children, and some asshole shot my shit up." And they do that. That's basically what he was saying. And then he gets banned. And whatever else happened, nobody ever came out and said something else happened. Nobody ever else came out and was like, they had like a real reason to do this, because nothing happened. No one got hurt. They talk about hip hop and they hip hop. Well, hip hop is a competition. It's a battle. MC battled you. Oh well, tough shit for you. And that's how it's 10 years later. He's still banned. All the shit he's done. He had an organization for kids. He still does. He had an organization for kids whose parents are in prison. Do you know how important that is? A support group for kids whose parents are in prison. He was behind that. He's done so many things that are not just up on the wall. Like you see on Instagram now when he's out doing the, you know, saving people in the flood and all this or whatever. He can post things like that now. But back then we didn't have all those things where you could just see it. I knew putting money to build shelters. He's built shelters for children and things like. Very literally, that's not okay. And it's not okay that the Houston community and me and a couple of people stood up for him because they were afraid to not get played on the box. Fuck the box. Fuck them. This is a good ass dude. You know what I mean? So it doesn't even balance out at all. It doesn't balance out at all.
He paid for part of DJ Screw's slab too.
Yeah. He paid to get, DJ Screws now has a proper gravestone, like the slab of concrete on it. I mean, everything. He's been there for so many people. This shit pisses me off, if you can't tell. And I hate that I'm still pissed off about it 10 years later. Why do they have so much control over anything, let alone him? It's some bullshit, man.
That's wild.
No, it makes me mad, dude. And that's part of what. Okay, what happened to Houston? That, not just him being banned, but like, where was the unity? They could have stood together and stopped that shit in a minute. If they stood up, if everybody's like, man, you can't ban Trey, and said what I said, and came out, people who actually, I had no pull on that level. I just was talking shit. I just like able to get the word out. It didn't matter. But if everybody here stood up, it would have made a difference. No one. Bun called in and it's like, that's not right. And Killer Calion was on the air one day. I was like, did a shout out to him and almost got himself banned himself and got out of that, thankfully, I guess. But not that they play a lot of Killer Calion. And they should. You know, that's what happened to Houston. It fell fucking apart. Everybody went for themselves. You know, I'm not going to call out people by name because people who know who the good people were trying to get this together. And people know who fucked this fucking game up. Selfish bullshit. And so, yeah. South by Southwest offered me a job. I had 2 kids at the time, had family in Austin. I was like, I'm going to move to Austin. Fuck this. I'm going to get a job.
What year was that?
End of 07.
Oh,
But I had already booked for them for 4 years. Started booking hip-hop in 04.
So is that when you kind of fell back from the scene, kind of just like?
I mean, I still, again, to this day, Houston, to me, I live in Austin. Houston's still my home base
Right.
to an extent. Like, I can function here. I can make more money here, and I have more, people here. I love Houston from the art, music, people, everything.
Right.
I love this city. I love Austin, too, for other reasons. I kind of feel like the two cities work hand in hand. If you live in Houston, you need to go to Austin every now and then and get some nature and some chill vibes. If you live in Austin, you might need to come get your ass kicked in Houston for a few days. Come into the big city, the crazy place. And if you rap anywhere in Texas, you've got Mecca right here. You should come. Like, that's my biggest argument because I feel like historically, and this may be a little controversial, but performance-wise especially, because Austin has 6th Street and no shortage of places to do a live concert. The rappers in Austin, ones who never even made it big or whatever, you may never heard of them, they were better than the Houston rappers as far as like performances, like coming out and like really doing a show, because they were able to season themselves. They had more opportunity. And it was in a venue. Like, there's a difference between a nightclub and a live music venue. Austin doesn't hardly have any real. They have a few, but don't have a lot of nightclubs. We have a lot of live music venues. So you go to perform, you got somebody running the sound, the mics work. Here to this day, there's better venues. We have Warehouse Live, I always say, changed the game here and elevated everything as far as live music for hip-hop goes. And now you've got more venues that are proper for actual shows. But back in the day especially, it was all at nightclubs and the mics didn't work. I think that's where rapping over vocals came from to an extent, because you didn't know when you went into some club at 2 a.m, you finally got on and the mic didn't work. Like, they went through that. That was real, So... But the Austin guys, to this day, some of them, there's some to do. But I'm like, man, you got Houston 2.5 hours down the road. I've lived there forever. I go there all the time. Maybe it's different for me, but you could go there and go to DJ Chill's Club. Back in those days, go to Connections go to Max's on a Sunday. You just pretty much were in the middle of every person possible that you needed to meet in Houston. They were just there. And you didn't have to have a show there. You could take your flyers, take your CDs. I would always tell people that, like, go. You got Dallas 3 hours away. Yeah. These are 2 huge markets for music. But I don't know. I'd like to see more crossover because I love Houston. But at this point in time, I would like to see a bigger movement for Texas, because there's things happening in every city. Like, have you heard Quinn NFN?
Yeah.
He signed to whatever the 69 Boy dude's label is. It's 100 something. I don't know. 10. It's a number label. I don't listen to that. I listen to Quinn FM, but not the 69 Boy. Yeah. But he signed to a real deal. There's things happening. Warden, young kid, he's getting good internet attention. Like, there's things happening in Austin right now.
Yeah. I mean, even in Houston, though, what do you think about this whole, 1501 thing? Because 1501 kind of had the opportunity to come in and be, the next, big situation out of Houston, man. Popular artist, you know what I mean? Successful artist. And,
I mean, I think there's always going to be things happening. I feel, okay, I think I said earlier in this interview, I want to talk more about this region and what this is and how important it is. What everyone has lost with the internet, because the internet does give you the opportunity to promote to the world. I know personally people who tell me that they're blowing up because they got a fucking email from Germany once. Or like, man, they listen to me in Germany. I'm like, somebody tweeted you. What they need to understand is the Screwed Up Clique, and especially Swisher House, but all those artists from that era, they made it partially because Houston supported Houston, but they really made it because Texas supported Texas. And by Texas, I mean a circle from Houston, San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, Shreveport, sort of Lafayette, more, that's that edge of Louisiana into Beaumont, back to Houston. This was where people were selling 100,000 CDs and tapes. This was where rappers that we love now from the late 90s and early 2000s and stuff, this is where they were doing shows before the world heard anything about them. They were doing 1,000, 2,000 people in Tyler, Texas. If Dallas didn't support Houston rap so much, especially when it came closer to the Swisher House era and Lil Flip and those type of guys, if it wasn't for T-Town Music, if it wasn't for the Bomb up in Dallas promoting this stuff so much, it wouldn't be as big as it is. If it wasn't for like Music Mania, Shorty Mac being out in Austin, spreading that sound through that region, it wouldn't be the same. Like, so these dudes, they would get in. Now, I understand that retail is different now. There's not as many like mom and pop shops. So it doesn't make as much sense to do that whole circuit, just physically go to all these places. But the internet's cool, but the ones who really make it are the ones who go out and touch the people, the ones who go out and perform for the people. And it still exists. There's cities in Texas, people haven't even heard of. In Louisiana, these guys used to go to and make money. And then there was Jackson, Mississippi. There's Birmingham, Alabama. There were certain places that reached out further in that little circle I said. But like literally, it was it's a relatively small area of the world that these guys were being a real success in. And I think the most successful artists we've seen historically, if this is Houston, this is Texas, this is the region I just said, this is the United States, this is the world, they progressed outwardly. And it didn't just happen overnight. It wasn't just some streams. It wasn't just a hot YouTube video. You know what I mean? It was, now you have to do both.
Yeah.
You can do that video and have your moment, or you can do that video and capitalize on your moment and go out there and really, really do it. So I don't know what they do business-wise. I'm not criticizing them personally, but I'm saying I saw the physical work that was done back then. And now I'm like, what are y'all missing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're missing that. You're missing just heading out in the streets.
Yeah. Okay. Well, before we get out of here, top 5 Houston rappers.
I don't want to do that. No, Choice, number 1. I love Choice, actually. But,
Choice. You got to tell people who Choice are. People say, who's Choice?
Choice was a female rapper on Rap A Lot back in the day. She was raw. Willie D wrote a lot of her stuff, but she was dope as hell and hilarious. Her first record, The Big Payback, I used to run that shit because that was another tape I just randomly put in on people. She talked so nasty. It was like Willie D rapping, a woman rapping Willie D. She was nastier, and she was nastier than anyone. It was amazing. She was amazing. Honestly, I think Scarface is the greatest rapper of all time. In fact, my number 1 as a whole is a tie between Scarface and Pharoah Monch of Organized Confusion. It's two totally different reasons. Scarface is Scarface, the most consistently dope, rapper. He's pretty much perfect. Then Pharoah Monch is like an acrobat of rap. He's like the Cirque du Soleil of rap. Like what he does with these words and the way he does it is just insane. So I want to put them both up on the same level. But if we're going to just talk about Houston, I don't even want to put like Scarface, Willie D, Devin, Bun in a top Houston list to an extent. You know what I mean? Like, because it's like they're so... there's just so much more to it than just that. So, I don't know, man. I can only say the ones I think I like the best. Like Hawk. I mean, of course, I mean, I don't want to do a top 5 actually, but I mean, UGK, Ghetto Boys, whole Screwed Up Click, whole Swisher House, all them. Yeah, that's the top to me. I love all them, but for my favorites, shit, I would put Choice in my top 5. When I was a kid, I ran that tape like a motherfucker, and that's crazy. So it's not really fair because most people haven't heard her, and Willie D wrote some of that shit, but I jammed that shit. The Chaotix, man. They blew my mind as a kid. Like, having them come out, they were such a breath of fresh air. It was so dope to hear, like, these guys would, it was, and to see what they did, like, taking it to a whole nother level, totally under the radar. I love that. You know, I'd sometimes fuck with people, and they're like, man, yeah, the best rapper out of Houston is Scarface. He's the best. I'm like, you know who actually the best rapper out of Houston is? Diology. Diology can rap. Like, rap. Like, on a almost not quite Pharoah Monch, like, craziness, but like, when you listen to what Diology, he was in the Psycho Ward and all, you listen to what the shit he puts together, so underground. I just had something else too. Oh. Yeah, and with the Niat and all that. I don't know. There's so many that are just so, it's hard for me to say. I love Killer Corleone. Let's get him up there. You know what, that he's had so much to say over time that has been ignored, but he's a fire-breathing, amazing rapper.
Crazy, yeah.
And I don't know if that's but let me say the best rapper, K Reno.
K Reno.
Let's give that to K Reno, because K Reno, he's incredible.
Yeah.
And he's real hip hop, real rap.
Yeah.
And to this day, releasing multiple records a year.
Yeah.
Good ones. When he put out 7 records, they were good, man.
Yeah, that was crazy. Like,
that was crazy.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I hope he did this. And I trust K Reno to do it, but I was like, all right, I'm gonna listen to all these, man. I'm gonna see. And I was like, shit jams. It's good.
Yeah.
You know, and like, I mean, God, we've gone far enough, and people are gonna be turning this shit off. But like, just saying that just opens up to me, like, thinking about that era of the Ghetto Boys and when I first heard the Terrorists and, you know, all those South Park Coalition groups, Klondike Cat, you know, outside like FISU was not South Park Coalition, but like that sort of era, like, God, there's so many unheralded, Point Blank.
Yeah.
These are groups that people, you know, the average hip hop head doesn't know, but there's people in Europe who have everything.
Yeah.
Not everyone, but like there's people who have it. You know, there's the people that they really hit, love it.
Yeah.
You know, and that was the most beautiful thing about Houston rap, was they were able to really have that bass here. It was super unique. They took it just barely outside of here, and then whoever gravitated towards it, they got it.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. It was independent, very real, raw. That's what I miss.
Yeah. So, all right, any last words before we get out of here, man?
I'm gonna start a podcast again.
Okay.
At some point. I don't know. Pusher Mania on all the socials. Hit me up. I'm still here. I still have the same phone number. Pretty much do the same things. I don't write for magazines because most of them don't exist. But I still love it.
What's one thing you've learned in your time, just in the culture?
I've learned everything from the culture. That's what I like about rap music from the beginning, is making something out of nothing.
Yeah.
You know, having the stuff I grew up with, Chuck D, Public Enemy, Brand Nubian, Poor Righteous Teachers, X-Clan. I learned about Africa from rap music. You know what I mean? Like, back when in my era.
Yeah.
I learned so much.
Well, I mean more so like personal shit. You know what I mean? Like career shit. What's certain shit you've learned, just picked up just from
Everything is fake and a lie, and it's all smoke and mirrors.
Okay.
There's always someone behind the curtain. No, I mean, like now with all the SoundCloud successes and, oh my God, he blew up, she blew up, oh my God. Like, no, there's money being put behind it.
Yeah.
Okay? There's things happening. If you're, that's the hardest thing that I've had to see, because I feel bad for some of the artists who I love, rappers who are great, but they never had that investor. They never got that investment. They never were able to come up with, like, you know, money to do a lot of the things that it takes. It's a money laundering operation, this shit, this music business shit. This music business shit is gangster.
Yeah.
Not just rap.
Yeah.
Country music is gangster. Rock is gangster. On that, excuse me. I hope I didn't blow everybody's ears out, but yeah. I've learned a lot. Like, so it's like you have to. Actually, you don't have to because no one else does. But you kind of have to filter through the real and the fake. I want the real, and I get mad at the fake.
Yeah.
I get mad at the lip syncers.
Yeah.
And that type of shit. Like, I don't want to be, if someone's lip syncing or their CD's just playing, I don't watch them anymore. I walk out. I've learned that, like, there's a huge world out there. And through my travels and going to places like Europe, and I've been to Nigeria, I've been to South Africa, seen all kinds of things in my life. I went for Murder Dog. I went to, like I said, Gary, Indiana. I went to Pittsburgh. I went to Honolulu. I went to Austin, Houston, Dallas. I went to Miami. I went to all through. We did a double CD compilation of South Carolina rappers you never heard of. And I was in the country. I was in like black trailer parks in the middle of nowhere before GPS in a rental car with a camera and a little tape recorder. Literally, like, I got to see like America from richest to the poorest. I've seen it, seen it all because of hip hop.
Yeah.
I've been to parties, big mansion parties, and I've been to the trailer park of South Carolina. I've been to Fifth Ward. I've been to everywhere because of this music, because of this culture. And I love this music. I love this culture. And as long as, I like the best of the best, not what's hot.
That's what's up, man. Well, hey, man, Matt Sonzala, man, I appreciate you coming through, man.
Thank you. I hope that timer is a little off because I think if we've been on this long, oh my God.
Just an hour and a half.
Okay. I thought it said 2.5. I was like,
Yeah, no, I was just counting. It's going into the second hour.
okay, good. I was like, this is not, if I just did all that, if we were just here for 2.5 hours, I'm sorry. I apologize, America.
No, this is cool. We're going to have to do a part 2 and 3 and 4 and all that because, I mean, bruh.
I'm down for whatever. I'm sorry it took so long for me to get up here and do this, but I'm really happy for the opportunity, and thank you for sticking with me. And thank you to everybody who's always stuck with me and supported me. Like I said, Bun B and all these, all Paul, Slim, all these guys from that era, man. Like, I just saw ESG last night. Like, Big Bub and them at the shop. Michael Watts. All these guys, man. These are like, it's crazy to me sometimes, and I'm like, these are actually my friends. Like, when Bun B calls me, he's my dude, but I'm still sometimes like, Bun B just called me. Yeah. It's been years. You know what I mean? It's dope.
Yeah.
It's dope. These are like, Willie D. I was a kid jamming the shit out of the Ghetto Boys. And I've hung out with Willie D and his son. That shit, it all means a lot to me, man. This whole culture means a lot to me. Houston made me. I'm so lucky to the circumstances that got me here was like a little weird. I'm like, I can't be mad at my dad, man. He got me to Houston. Hell yeah. This is everything to me.
Yeah. Well, that's what's up, man. Hey, it's the Johnny Houston Podcast, man. Matt Sonzala. We out.
Johnny Houston.